Nearly every faith-based school has some kind of board. It may be called a commission or a council. It may be advisory or policy setting. But there is some group providing community representation to assure that the school is responsive to the community it serves. Hi, I'm Jack Peterson with Managing for Mission. Managing for Mission specializes in administrative and governance consulting for faith-based schools across the U.S. and Canada. Connecting to the communities they serve is of paramount importance to faith-based schools. But how boards function in that connecting role can seem more like alchemy than science. Boards vary in their authority, structure, level of engagement, and operating style. It's often difficult for board members and others to put their finger on just what the board is supposed to do and how it should do it. A good place to start is understanding what kind of board a school has. This tutorial reviews the variations and their ramifications. Think of it as sort of a field guide to boards. To identify what kind of board your school has, the first characteristic to look at is its authority. If the board is a true governing board, it sets high-level policy, hires, evaluates, and fires, when necessary, the chief administrator, and has ultimate fiduciary responsibility for the assets of the school. However, many boards are advisory only. Their schools are generally owned by their religious sponsor, like a diocese, a parish, or a religious order, which has ultimate authority and fiduciary responsibility. In these cases, the board offers various perspectives and expertise, but does not itself set policy. There are advantages to a school being owned by its sponsor, especially if that entity has deep pockets and robust staffing to deal with the needs that arise. Unfortunately, that kind of capacity is becoming rare. Religious orders and dioceses are finding themselves stretched thin and unable to meet the financial needs of their schools. Often the response is simply to close them. Most orders, and now many dioceses, are moving beyond ownership, recognizing that they can assure fidelity more effectively through sponsorship processes. Advisory boards are ill-equipped to shoulder this responsibility. The next characteristic is structure. As governance has evolved, some faith-based schools find themselves with more than one board. They may have a board of directors or trustees, which has policy-making authority, but they may also have above them a group known as corporate members, who retain ultimate ownership authority. A corporate member can be a bishop, a religious superior, or her or his delegates. They'll generally reserve a few key powers like setting the bylaws or approving large financial transactions, and then delegate all the rest to the governing board. This structure assures fidelity to the faith-based mission, but also empowers the local community to take responsibility for the school's operating needs. Some schools have an advisory board in addition to a governing board. And some schools have 3 levels of governance: a member board, a governing board, and an advisory board. Multi-tiered governance structures are cumbersome and lead to confusion about who is responsible for what. Most schools are evolving toward one board. Religious sponsors are moving away from controlling schools through ownership and corporate member boards toward a sponsorship process, much like accreditation. And governing boards, rather than maintaining a separate advisory board, find it more effective to use their own committee structure to involve additional people. Regardless of authority and structure, to be effective, boards must have a high level of engagement. In my work with boards, I'm often surprised at how passive some boards are. They meet rarely, and when they do meet, they mostly listen to reports from the administration. Other boards are active and have clear responsibilities like approving the budget or high-level personnel policies. And still others are proactive, using strategic planning to prepare the school for new realities in the years ahead. And some boards are overactive, crossing into operational areas that are best entrusted to the school administration. The sweet spot in most cases will be the proactive level. Here, the school receives the full benefit of the board's expertise without the intrusion into operations that the board has neither the time nor the agility to address effectively. The final characteristic for identifying your board is its style, which can vary from informal to formal. An informal style may be attractive because it feels simpler and more expeditious. As boards evolve, however, they need more consistent processes and written procedures to make sure that they address complex matters appropriately. For instance, they may feel that bringing on new members without a formal vetting and nominating process is working just fine, and in many cases, it probably is. But it's difficult to achieve the diversity, skill sets, and community leadership of a high-functioning board without a thoughtful selection process. So, what kind of board does your school have? And what kind of board does it need? Do you have an advisory board because your school is owned by your order or diocese? It may be increasingly difficult to find consistent and robust support from your sponsor because their resources are spread thin. But you may find your board to be passive because it doesn't bear ultimate responsibility and wouldn't have the necessary authority if it did. Your challenge is to find ways to empower the board by entrusting it with meaningful responsibility. Do you work in a multi-level governance model where making decisions can be cumbersome and it's not always clear who has what responsibility? Your challenge is to achieve clarity and a high level of trust among the different players. This requires sustained attention to process and personalities. Is your board operating more like a mom and pop outfit than the governing board of an important and complex organization? Your challenge will be to help the board understand the importance of its work and commit to processes that match the caliber and desired caliber of the school. Any of these models can be made to work, but it requires recognizing which reality you're living in and the challenges that stem from your model. Responding thoughtfully can move your school toward a governance model that better matches its current and future needs. The effort may be complex and at times taxing, but it is the most important thing you can do to assure the viability of your school in the face of the challenges ahead. If you need help, our website at managingformission.com has plenty of downloadable resources. And of course, I'm always happy to answer questions at the email address at the end of this tutorial. God bless.